What is Kundalini activation? Why do we need it?
It's the energy that resides within each and every single one of us. And it's known as the divine feminine energy, also known as Shakti.
What are some of the red flags that we should be looking out for? A lot of content about bodywork and a lot of content about yoga and healing. It just keeps circulating.
A lot of women haven't seen very good examples of what that looks like. They've seen that the feminine is meek and mild, and if she stands up for herself, then it means that she is not a good girl.
I just wish to see a world where more women can freely enjoy relationships, to be completely honest.
We can see that women are now in that hyper masculine energy.
I was extremely hyper masculine. I am still in some ways.
For me, I always saw just from my family constructs or even how women were portrayed in the culture or on television is that they were either super feminine, and what that meant,
subservience.
Yes, they didn't use their voice. How do you feel when you massage your breasts or work with your and pleasure yourself? What comes from that?
I feel like we are starting to recognize that we live in a culture that was not built to empower us.
When women are connected to their seat of their power, there's nothing they cannot do. They are unstoppable.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited for this conversation because today we're talking about pleasure. And I love talking about pleasure. But this is a conversation on pleasure and healing and reconnection with self through the lens of the South Asian feminine experience. And I'm joined by Kiren, who's a Kundalini Activation coach, and her work centers on helping women reconnect with their bodies, clear emotional and energetic blocks, and sort of reclaim their inner ability to live. And in this episode, we're not talking about pleasure in a sexualized way. We're exploring it more from the lens of self-connection and healing and emotional safety. And the big question is, why do so many women, especially South Asian women, feel disconnected from pleasure? Why do we need to do this work? And how does the cultural conditioning and past trauma and upbringing shape our relationship with our bodies? And how can energetic healing and practices like Kundalini yoga or activation help us release that shame and trauma and make space for something bigger and something more alive? So I'm really looking forward to learning about why do we need to do this at all. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. I've been looking at your work for quite some time, and I just love that you have created such a wonderful platform to be able to open up this conversation, really breaking the taboo around it, because it's so important, especially for us as women, to normalize this, because there's so much shame that can come from it, or just misinformation or not enough information. So thank you for holding this space too.
Every so often when I'm on Instagram, I see these conversations, and everybody who I speak to who's a coach, who's a certified coach, I'm always asking them the question, what are some of the red flags that we should be looking out for when we're on Instagram? And a lot of content about bodywork and a lot of content about yoga and healing, it just keeps circulating. How do people, because you just said, there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
So obviously we'll cover everything, but just to begin, what is Kundalini activation? Why do we need it?
Kundalini is essentially your life force energy. It's the energy that resides within each and every single one of us. And it's known as the divine feminine energy, also known as Shakti. And so in simple terms, what it is our vitality. And so when it activates gently, it can really unblock suppressed emotions, awaken sensuality, and really reconnect us back to our bodies. But it has a really big spiritual significance, because the main reason why people do Kundalini activations, or from centuries ago, we're doing Kundalini yoga, Kundalini breathwork, and spending years in this process, was to awaken their wider consciousness. And now it's here in a more accessible way, where it's this gentle awakening, where the Kundalini, as it's known, is a coiled snake. at the base of our spine. And what happens is through a transmission where I am the facilitator and I've been initiated to hold this frequency. And so I allow this high vibrational frequency to channel through me. And then what happens is that on an energetic vibrational level, your Kundalini will recognize it because it's of the same vibration, and it will start to rise. And when it starts to rise, it starts to move through the different nadis, through the different chakra points in our bodies, climbing up. And as it climbs up, it starts to take away anything that no longer serves us for what we're ready for. And I often say it's kind of like peeling back layers of an onion, because there may be a first few sessions where we've had so much conditioning in our minds that we feel that something's not happening or it's not working, but actually the energy is always working. What it's doing is it's de-armoring us, removing some of the subtle layers that we have in our minds and some of the stories that we may have made up in order for us to start to go deeper within ourselves and connect to our body's innate wisdom. So I would say it's accessible for everyone, but I feel that you need to be ready to also receive this wisdom, because there are moments where you may have deep emotional releases. There may be some completion of trauma cycles. And equally, as we have these aspects where we may see them as negative or our shadow aspects, they're actually there to serve us in our highest good. Because once we release them or remove them or give them some kind of love, because all these want is to be seen, ultimately, then we're able to also access deep states of bliss and joy and creativity and deeper connection with our bodies. And especially for us women, a connection with our womb, which is super important.
I'm really curious. What do you mean by life force? What is life force?
Yeah.
And how does it look like?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. What does it look like? Well, the Sanskrit texts say that it is like this coiled snake. And there are many cultures and different, what's the best way of describing it? Different groups or realms of thought that have used this in a similar way. So you've got chi, you've got prana, you've got many different schools of thought, like I said. So the way that I'm describing it is this divine feminine energy. Life force is essentially that thing that gives you life, that awakens your joy, the thing that's mixed in with this sexual energy and this energy that moves, that's there to create. That's why it's likened to the divine feminine, because it's all to do with that energy of creation. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, and how do I know, like, how do I know that I'm disconnected from this energy in my body? How do I know? Like you said, it's innate and it's within everybody, but how do I really know that there is some block in me and I need to work on that Kundalini activation?
So Kundalini activation is just one of many modalities that you can do to ignite your life force energy. But what I could have perhaps explained was this coiled snake, your Kundalini is dormant energy. So yeah, we're alive right now. We're living our lives, doing what we're doing, but it's this dormant state. And it's almost like this awakening that happens when you go through a process of doing a transmission, whether it's Kundalini activation, which I shared as more of a gentle process, or where you're doing something like Kundalini breathwork or Kundalini yoga, where you're actively trying to force this energy to awaken. And what happens is that it moves from the base of your spine all the way to the top of your head, to your crown chakra. And there are many different schools of thought, as I shared before. And I suppose if you were looking for more of a scientific way of describing it, it's almost like you're trying to activate your pineal gland. And Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time. And I remember when I had my first awakening, and I didn't know that it was my Kundalini until I became initiated in holding this frequency as a healer, where I remember doing a Joe Dispenza meditation one day when I was just feeling so crappy. and just really low in energy, was feeling really stuck in life. I was just very, very unhappy. I was in a space that, wasn't really serving me, whether it was in my career and definitely how I felt within myself. And so I remember finding this random YouTube meditation. And I remember the guidance in that meditation was to feel the energy at the base of our spine and then push it up. Like imagine using your breath that you're pushing this ball of energy up through the middle of your spine to the top of your head. And then all of a sudden, I just remember this rush, and it felt like almost like an electric shock. It's the only way that I can describe it, where it was just like whoosh all the way to the top of my head. And it was like it was very interesting. It was almost like this head rush that happened after. And
I'm really interested because today I intend to do some meditation. So I'm going to look this exact thing up. Who is it by again?
well, this is Joe Dispenza, and he does
Joe
lots
Dispenza.
of phenomenal work where it's like you can heal your life. And it's true, through the power of our thoughts and our minds, we can fully step into a new reality
Yeah.
that exists in the quantum field. So if I was to get really specific and scientific about it, it's like there's no time and space in the quantum field. And therefore, when we are looking at working with our life force energy, awakening our Kundalini, it's to awaken the potential of infinite possibilities, focusing on what our mindset is like and showing ourselves that this new reality that we crave in different ways is possible. And it can be a really wonderful experience when you are with the right facilitator. And what's happening now is that this activation process is more newer in some senses than Kundalini yoga and Kundalini breathwork. But in my opinion, just because it appears to be newer through the likes of social media, etc., and not spoken of, it doesn't mean that there weren't sages and rishis and people focusing on using their energies and being able to activate themselves from thousands of years ago. And so, like I say, with everything that exists in this world, whether it's to do with like yoga, breathwork, spirituality, even normal things that we're living in our day to day life, there's a light and a shadow aspect. And so, this is why I say when you're doing this kind of energy healing work, it's not an instant fix. And I think a lot of people that go into it think, oh, my life is going to be healed. I don't have to do anything. That is not the correct mindset to have,
No.
because you can
Yeah.
be really disillusioned, and you can also have an experience where your body, depending on what modality you're working with, as I said, Kundalini activation transmissions are very gentle. It's a gentle awakening. Whereas if you are going through a more of a masculine route, and I say masculine because you're having to do, whereas with an activation, it's more of a gentle transmission where you lie down, and it's a deep meditation where you're receiving, which we say is more in the feminine
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say that to say, yeah, if you're forcing your Kundalini to awaken, you need to be ready for that, because your nervous system has to be able to hold all of the things that you will experience as a result of that. There may be many ego deaths. There may be, a real call for you to make active changes in your life. The frequency can only go so far. And so it's like having that balance between intention, being safely held, nourished, and supported, and being with a facilitator that can help guide you in a way through your transformation and through your journey.
Right. How do you know you're ready?
Well, some people feel the call. I actually stumbled into for me, I stumbled into my first Kundalini activation. I didn't know what it was. I was in Bali, and I remember speaking with someone. I was there on vacation, and I was like, oh, at a gym class, and how did you find the class? And they were like, yeah, it was good, but I had to take it easy because I had a Kundalini activation. And I was like, what is that? And they briefly shared what it was. They were like, oh, it's really good. It's really healing. Your body may make sudden movements and you move around, and, you may release loads of trauma. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. Like, let's go. Let's see what it's like. And I think it's okay to have a level of innocence because when you have a level of innocence, it takes away from any preconceptions or judgments and fears that we have in our mind when we're going into something. And so I feel really grateful for that, because I remember being in the transmission where my teacher now was just explaining what the process is and how, we're this channel, and what will happen is that some music will play, and what will happen is that your Kundalini will begin to uncoil and go through this process of awakening. And so activations can lead to awakenings, but that takes conscious practice, it takes conscious effort, and also it's not the main point of it. I feel that the main point of it is to really come back home into yourself and having these states of awareness. And so I think back to my point before, it's really important to choose a facilitator that is in integrity with what they're doing. It's not anyone else moving your energy or forcing your energy to awaken. Your energy is intelligent enough to know what it is you need to release in this moment in time, what you need to receive in this moment in time. And also there's the power of intention. So for me in my sessions, whether
Yeah.
it's group or one-to-one, I always say, I invite them to set an intention for what they would like to receive, and then letting it go and trusting that they will receive that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So for me, if I was to say, how do you know? It's you don't. The path will call you. It's just like plant medicine. Everyone rushes off to do mushrooms and ayahuasca, and then maybe having a really uncomfortable experience where they don't know what they've received. And that can be very frightening when you're not aware. And so I think it's having this balance of knowing why you're doing something and you're not just doing it for the sake of it. For me, when I was approached by this woman, I was like, there's something within me that feels called to go. Even if it's to explore and open my mind, I'd be open to that. And there is a space for that.
Yeah. No, I know 100% what you're
Yeah.
saying. And I believe, like, this is so crazy because I believe that I'm talking to you today because today I told my husband that we have a room in our house that's not free at the moment. And I'm like, I want this room to be
Yeah.
clear because I want to do something else in this room. I used to do womb healing in this room and I want to go back to using the room for
Yeah.
something. So this has to mean something that. And he's like, we have enough space. We have a very big house. He was just teasing me because it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can you meditate where you sleep? And he's like, of course you can. And I'm like, no, you can't. It's all about the energy. I don't want to feel like I'm sleeping. And he's like, you do realize I don't sleep. He's got insomnia. It's a different story. So we were just joking about it. And then I woke up in the morning and I'm like, Jesus, I'm so tired. Maybe we should do this next week. And then now I'm talking to you and I'm like, no, it has to mean something. Like, this is such a small thing. But like, I always feel like everything's connected. And if you are meant to do something, something else is connected to that. And you're totally right. It's also scientific. It's like the neural pathways in your brain. It's like I know when I wake up and let's say run in the morning, I come back and I eat a kiwi. And if I skip my run, my brain doesn't recognize that it's time to eat a kiwi or like whatever you consume, or, it's neural pathways and everything's connected. So I know what you mean exactly, that you have to be ready and you're going to be called into it.
Yeah.
And what the one thing that really, I would like to zoom out a little bit. One thing that really, I would like to kind of really invite the audience who's listening or watching, because you and me are at a point in our life that we're talking. So there's a reason why we're talking. But a lot of people, a lot of women, and I was once in that state as well, we are very disconnected, or we struggle to connect to pleasure. And I don't mean sexual pleasure alone. I just mean that we struggle to connect with a part of our bodies, a part of our brains, which basically tells us that we deserve pleasure or we're capable of experiencing pleasure. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think there are many reasons for that. Many, many, many reasons. And I'm sure we could speak for hours on where these reasons come from. But there's a lot of shame. And I think, especially for women of color, where they come from different cultural backgrounds, it's like if you're seen to be connected with your sensuality or your sexuality, with or without the sex, because sexuality doesn't just mean the physical act of being intimate, so much more beyond that, you're seen to be portrayed in a very negative light. And there has been many conversations around this, especially around history, where women were persecuted for that. And in terms of the work that I do, especially around womb healing or even coaching with different clients, because I offer both, and sometimes I weave the two in together depending on what blocks they have, whether it's energetic or mental. But I feel that I feel that when women are in their personal power, historically they have been feared. And you can see this in different ways. Like, think about a business, an organization. You have a male CEO and you have a female CEO. And studies have been shown that a male CEO in a position of power is likened so much more than his female counterpart, where he may assert his boundaries, she does the same, but it comes across as her being a bitch, or she's seen more negatively. And so it's really interesting how this narrative plays out in so many different ways. And so what I would say to that is that, yeah, there's different avenues as to where this shame comes from. A lot of it is embedded within our society. And I truly believe it's because when women are connected to their seat of their power, there's nothing they cannot do. They are unstoppable. And it's because they have their wombs. It's the seat of all creation. And so much comes when we are connected to our body, our intuition. And I think a lot of women haven't seen very good examples of what that looks like, or they've seen that the feminine is meek and mild. And if she stands up for herself, then it means that she's not a good girl. Like, there's so many different levels of programming that exist. And one of the things that I had to really learn in my journey, especially holding this Kundalini frequency, this Shakti energy, Shakti being the divine feminine, I had to really re examine my relationship with the feminine. What does the feminine actually mean?
Yeah, I know. And it's really
Yeah.
uncomfortable because I was extremely
Mm,
hypermasculine. I am still
me
in some
too.
ways, but, and I think being slightly
Mm,
hyper feminine, like being extremely feminine and then slightly hyper feminine, makes me
mm,
more
mm.
feminine. I just feel that, and I feel like I've met some men who are extremely particular about their own healing and coming across clear and not
Yeah.
wounded. And I realized that a lot of them, what makes them extremely healthy, masculine, extremely healthy and masculine in a healthy way, is that they have a little bit of feminine in
Mm.
them. It's slightly about a balance, and that's just my very layman
Yeah.
observation. But yeah, you're totally right. It just completely, my relationship completely changed with how I used to see the feminine, and this also changed my relationship with my body, with
Yeah.
other people, with work, with everything, with how I start my day, how I end my day. Like, it's just completely changed my life in the last
Yeah.
few
Oh,
years.
that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for
Yeah. And I'm still not there yet. I feel like there's so much more
sharing.
work I can still do. Like, you're doing it your
Yes.
whole life. It's just a way of
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
yeah, totally. It is a way of life. And something that I would add to that is that I think there is this huge misconception for men and women that when we speak about feminine and masculine energy, we're speaking about the biological sex of male and female, when actually the truth is that you are correct in the sense that we as individuals have both masculine and feminine energy. And what's happening in the world now is that we can see that women are now in that hyper masculine energy, to the point where they've become so disconnected to what the feminine really means. And so, what that looks like in practice is learning how to slow down, learning how to be able to receive more, tapping into that creativity. And there's a lot of us, and each of us have an aspect of the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine. We do. We've seen it from our caregivers. We may have received it through epigenetics, because there's so many researchers and studies to say how our DNA is very synonymous with what we may be carrying from ancestral trauma. And we have the ability to heal that in various ways. And this is why this work is so important to me and why I'm so passionate about it, is because you don't have to remain stuck in whatever scenario you're in and whatever energetic state you're in or whatever emotional state you're in. You have the power within. And it's really important for me to help people recognize that, to uncover those blocks
Yeah.
and show them the art of what's possible. You get to make that change. You have agency,
Yeah.
you have choice.
Yeah.
And when we look at the feminine, going back full circle to that, it's like re-examining what the feminine actually means. And for me, I always saw, just from my family constructs or even how women were portrayed in the culture or on television, is that they were either super, super feminine. And what that meant, in order to be agreeable and liked and loved, was that they didn't use,
Yeah.
yes,
Subservience.
yes, they
Yeah.
didn't use their voice. And so many of our mothers and grandmothers had a voice, but they were shut down due to fear, suppression, so much.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that women who appeared extremely, extremely feminine in like
Mm.
pop culture, they were not really feminine. They were just
Mm.
oppressed. Because I personally think, I think in our generation, especially as South Asian, I feel like our grandmothers were more feminine than
Yeah,
our mothers.
definitely.
Because all of our grandmothers came from a time where they had to run for their lives. And I've heard some insane stories
Mm.
from people as a journalist where somebody was like, "Oh, my grandma like migrated with 6 children and she made that call in the and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, why do we not talk
Yeah,
about this more? You know?" And I feel like, but they passed on a lot of trauma to the generation which then became our
yeah,
parents. And then we're clearing that path for the next generation because we don't want
yeah,
to,
yeah.
pass it on. But yeah, I'm just really curious about one thing. Were you saying something so you can finish your thought?
I Essentially, I was going to say, like, whilst we may carry ancestral trauma from our grandmothers or our grandfathers, our ancestors have also passed down a lot of gifts. So I think with social media, it's like, yeah, I'm the chosen one. I chose on a soul level to clear all this trauma and da 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 da. Like, it's valid because it can be
Mm-hmm.
really hard. I'm not denying that in any way, shape, or form. Believe me. But it was such a beautiful reminder to say and to see that actually the strengths of my ancestors also lie within me. And I
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to use them for good in my life. So that's what I would say with
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I think to your point about the wounds, we all have like masculine and feminine wounds in different ways. It's just for us to explore them and see how we can restore our wholeness, because our wholeness exists. It's just about living a new way.
Yeah. 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 No, I really believe that a lot of us are disconnected from our bodies, and what I mean by that is, and I just use that example to kind of further the conversation. I've spoken about this on my podcast before, and I've spoken about it on social media that I had no relationship with my
Yeah.
body for a long time. And that doesn't mean that I did not enjoy masturbating or I did not think, oh, if I eat this food, I'm gonna gain a few extra pounds and I want to. It's not that. I had that physical recognition for my body, but I remember very, very clearly when I went into therapy for the first time. I was 20 something, and I was going into therapy because I was abused as a child. And at this time, I did not really know what I was going into therapy for because I noticed something. And then one door led to another, but my therapist told me to go stand under the shower and feel the water on my body. And this was such a simple thing she told me to do, but it completely changed my life. That was the point, that barrier between me and my body started to kind of shed. And I learned to sense what's going on in my body, because before this I was unable to understand what my body was telling me. I mean, I used to recognize tiredness and exhaustion and fatigue from my brain, not from my body, you know? And I've said this for a long time, that I had no relationship with my body, but the other day I was just sitting and I was like, how can I really articulate what it was? And then I was listening to some music and I was really sort of activated, as you say, in the energetic field. And I told my partner, I'm like, do you know what I mean when I say that? And he's like, no, what do you mean? And I'm like, I did not have arousal. I could not maintain a consistent state of arousal. I was so disconnected from my body. And he was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't mean that you have no desire, but it's just not consistent. You can just not consistently receive, or you can just not consistently express, because arousal is also like a form of expression, that I feel a certain way. And I literally, and it just occurred to me, and I'm like, oh my God, I was so disconnected from so many things. And then like I was able to articulate it, and then I was writing it down, and I was like, this completely changed my life, because now I enjoy food more. I enjoy like everything more. I enjoy friendships more. I enjoy, like, I know that I can love so much better, you know? And this is the part of like being disconnected from my body that I just didn't know how to deal with. It just, I also always say, like, this completely changed my relationships with people, because I show up in a different way. And this is the part that I would really like to kind of go deeper into. You know, when we say that we have all these energetic blocks and they need healing, but what are these blocks? Like, what is this energy, and what are emotional and energetic blocks? Is this something more scientific, something more deeper, or is this just shame and guilt and trauma that we talk about that needs work?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. And what I always share, especially when I'm working in this space, is that our minds are so overactive. And as human beings, we are so disconnected from our body's wisdom. And so, from what I was really hearing about your experience of your therapist saying, go and feel the water, it's like feeling the safety to be in your body, to feel the water, right? It's that presence, it's that essence. And so when we're talking about removing energetic or emotional blocks, they can come from so many different spaces, often perhaps through childhood, because as children, when we've not been allowed to express, the body always keeps the score. I think it's Gabor Mate that says that, or has written a book around it, where it's like the body always keeps the score. Why is it that when animals, when they go through a traumatic experience, the first thing that they do, and you can even watch a video on it on YouTube, it's like they shake. You see dogs do it, you see cats do it, you see lions doing it in the wilderness. Like the first thing they do is shake. And that shaking is for them to rebalance their nervous system and connect themselves back into their body after going into fight or flight. And what happens, I think, especially as women, if we've been suppressed in terms of expressing our emotions, saying how we feel through whatever capacity it is, it may be through lack of confidence, it may be through conditioning. Everyone is different. And the thing that is so interesting to me is that once we start to build that safety in our body, it's automatically allows us to pinpoint where are we feeling some of that resistance, and being able to tune out the mind, mute the mind, let go of any judgment, tune into that part of the body and just witness it. What does it need? Sometimes the easiest way is to just witness that there is something there, because it's showing you, hey, look at me. I'm coming up for a reason. I'm ready to be seen. You keep ignoring me, and I'm just going to get louder and louder. And that's what causes disease in our body, dis-ease. When we continue to ignore the things that are so prevalent within us until they have no choice but to scream. And it may or may not be too late then.
Yeah, my therapist said to me once, anything that you ignore, your
Wow.
body's gonna store
Yeah.
it. And when I was sitting in front of her on the day she told me that, my body was
Yeah.
expressing it with
Yes.
rage,
Yeah.
you know? And I realized that,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the sky is the limit, like the kind of things I've ignored.
Yeah.
How does this kind of energetic healing happens? Because people don't stumble upon these things in a chronological way, right?
Mm.
For me, it started with just a simple session with a therapist. And it was very, I'll be honest, it was very mental. It was very cognitive for me. And it
Mm.
was a lot later that I realized that everybody has these somatic blocks inside. I could wake up and I could be like, today I'm going to be my best self and I'm going to run and I'm going to do. But if I don't have that healing from within, like if I haven't
Mm.
really sat down with that pain and how my body felt and all that, it's not
Yeah.
going to work. How does this kind of healing happen and how can it be initiated?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I would say this is exactly the bread and butter of the work that I do, not in terms of just energetic healing, but my role as a coach. I feel like I can wrap in so many different aspects, but essentially, the way that I work as a coach is using psychosomatic tools to help uncover any blocks that are stopping you from fully stepping into the person that you want to be. Or if there is a goal that you have and there's some fear around it, it can be unconscious or conscious. And the best way we can move towards that is through working with a qualified professional, because sometimes trauma can come up. And so it's really important to work with someone that's either trauma informed, especially if there's something there that's coming up that's taking you out of your window of tolerance. Window of tolerance being moving you into this fight or flight, freeze, fawn state. Equally, coaching is something that it calls you forward, whereas therapy is something that may examine more from the past. So I often say if there is big T trauma there, it's really great to work with a therapist at the same time as coaching, because then it helps heal some of the past wounds whilst allowing you to kind of move forward within the coaching container. And I'm actually working with a client right now on relationships, and it's been incredible because she's getting the support she needs from the therapist, and she's getting the kind of drive and the motivation to heal any blocks and like having active practical steps of how she can move forward. And I think sometimes with this work, it can just be focused on the mind and not enough attention in the body. And so it's like being able to have a specific set of tools where you can ask certain questions like, if I was to give this part of me a voice, what does it need? And maybe a memory comes up. And it's like, if you're unaware of this random memory coming, you may not know how to handle it. Whereas actually working with someone that is aware of being able to hold you in that can guide you through that process where you can rewrite the story, and therefore rewriting how the neurons kind of work in your brain to create a different conscious story. Because a lot of the things that we do in our lives are unconscious. I think, was it like a statistic, like our unconscious mind is like makes up of like 70% of the stuff that we do. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
So it makes sense to pay attention to that.
I'd like to know what are some of these somatic practices? What do they look like? But before we kind of get into that, earlier we were talking about chakras. What are chakras? Do you want to just
Chakras,
briefly, yeah, for
yeah.
anybody who doesn't know?
Great question. So, chakras are essentially your energy centers that exist within the body. So, there are seven main ones, and it starts off around the base of your spine near your coccyx, known as the root chakra. And your root chakra is red and is really orientated around grounding. Then you have the sacral chakra, which is just above that, and that kind of lands under the belly button near your sex organ space. And the color of that chakra is orange. And the the aspect of that is essentially your essence, your creativity. And then it moves up into the solar plexus, which is above your belly button and just below your heart space, which is orange and sorry, it's yellow and it's all around your personal self expression. Then the fourth energy center is the one in your heart. So that's in the middle. It's really fascinating how your heart is really in the middle of all these different chakras. So that's also the color of that chakra is green. And that's, opening yourself to the vitality of life and passion and, love, essentially. That's why it's the heart chakra. And then it moves up into the throat. And I believe this to be blue in color. And this is also connected to self expression, but it's using the voice, its truth, its essence, it's all of that. And so sometimes when we're healing, or especially when I'm doing Kundalini activations, I may notice that there is a block here in the throat and it's connected to the heart or the solar plexus, or sometimes I find that the throat is very connected to a blockage closer down to the sex organ, especially for women around the womb, because the womb and the throat have a direct and like a nadi that connects them, nadi being an energetic line. And so moving on from that, if I was to say actually, and it's more interesting because again, it's looking at how our power is. If we're blocked in one place, we may also be blocked here. So by relieving the throat chakra and speaking your truth, being in alignment with who you are, you may be able to also lessen some of the effects if there are other blockages elsewhere. So it's not to say that you have to work on every single thing. Sometimes it's like a domino effect. And one aspect can just easily lighten the
Yeah.
load. And so that's what I would share to anyone that may be a bit nervous around energy healing or healing in
Yeah.
general. It's not to say that you have to heal the whole world or the whole world that exists within you. It's like, yeah, we have trauma, but sometimes it's just one aspect can heal so much of ourselves. It's not this infinite healing that needs to happen,
Yeah.
but it can be a journey of infinite learning because we grow and change through time. And
Yeah.
so connecting back from the throat chakra, we move up into our third eye. That's your intuition, that's your wisdom. The color of that is, I believe, like a darker blue or more of a violet. And then it moves up to the top of our head, which is our crown chakra. And that is the seat of consciousness. So, where we're working on Kundalini activation, it's like we're shifting that energy from the base of our spine, from our root chakra, all the way up to the top of our crown, which is that consciousness, that groundedness, all the way to the top. And so, here is where most people like to be at the top because it takes us out of our mind, it takes us somewhere beyond. And so I always say, there are so many people, especially as I live in Bali now, where everyone wants to stay up here, outside of the mind, in the ethers, in the esoteric aspect, and they don't want to live in reality, in the 3D, in the body, because it feels more comforting to be up here. And I've been there. Sometimes I go there because it feels more safe than being in the body. And then I recognize actually, as a soul, if I was to get esoteric about it myself, I chose to come down in this form. There were lessons for me to learn. And so it's like having one foot here on earth and having one foot up there in consciousness, allowing me to have the best of both worlds. Does that make
How
sense?
do you get to this point? It totally makes sense. How do you get to this point? Is it like substance or something else that people do? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so when I say up there in the ethers, it's very much about doing consciousness work. That inner work allows you to achieve those states. Things like meditation, things like praying. Some people get that through taking substances, yes. But what I would say to that is there is always an integration period. So there's a lot of people that are bypassing this work because it's easier to take a substance and continue taking it and taking it and taking it. For example, plant medicine. You can do all the ayahuasca retreats in the world and receive all these downloads from consciousness, see past lives, see what you need to improve on. But if you don't take the action in this material life, in the material world, what is the point? You're just going round and round in circles. It's another addiction, it's another distraction. And it's the same with Kundalini activation because you can see amazing visions. You can see, connections to wider consciousness. You can even have a full body orgasm, which is so blissful. You can have visions of seeing, who your spirit team are. It's whatever you're ready to receive and what you're ready to tune into. But it's like, okay, if there was a lesson in there, how are you integrating that after? Because your vibration is constantly changing, moving higher and higher on that scale of frequency. And so it's like, how are you integrating that new frequency, that new vibration into your body? That's where the grounding comes in. That's where the journaling comes in. That's when it's like looking at doing shadow work, inner child healing. That's where all of these things go from being really esoteric, up in the air, into practical action. And so it's about merging the two together.
Are these chakras the reason why sometimes we feel things in the parts of our bodies we feel? Like if you walk into a room full of people and you're supposed to speak, you're going to feel something in the diaphragm, or some people feel it in the belly. How do feelings manifest because of these energy centers?
Really good question. Well, feelings are connected to emotions, and emotions are connected to thoughts. And that's what creates behaviors, if we were to look at it in that kind of triangle. So it's like emotions create thoughts, thoughts create behaviors, behaviors create emotions. Like it goes back down into that cycle. And so it's like, if you feel something when you go into a room full of people, perhaps it may be a networking event and you don't know anyone there, and you're feeling a sensation in the body, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a blockage. It may be that it's asking for you to witness it and ask, what is it that you need? That is a really helpful way of tuning in with yourself. It's like if you feel something like anxiousness in your tummy, or it feels like butterflies, it can be good to tune in without making any stories, because that's what we do really well as human beings, is we let our monkey mind take over and make it mean something about us, when really it's just there to witness. And we can ask questions like, am I nervous? Am I anxious? Is it excitement? Like, what is this sensation showing me? And asking really powerful questions to try and discern what it is. And the more we start to do that, the more we can start to tap into our intuition to say, oh, it's just because I've not been in this space before and I'm a little bit nervous. That's okay. Let me have a bit of compassion for myself and go in. Let me meet my edge and introduce myself, or share a perspective that, maybe I would have been shy to do before. It's like there's an infinite kind of lens that individuals can go down because it's so unique to them. I wouldn't say that there's a prescribed way where suddenly if you feel something in your solar plexus, it means that you're really unconfident and you're not in your personal power. No, it could just be like, this is a new experience for me and I'm a little bit nervous because I've not done this before and I really want to enjoy the experience, and that's okay. It's our thoughts that create the emotions, if I was to answer that more directly. And so it's really powerful way for
Yeah.
us to ask instead of assuming, asking that part of us if we feel something there, like what could this be, with a curious mind, not from a space of judgment, which I think is a skill that many of us need to learn because we weren't always shown that by our primary caregivers or the schooling system, etc., etc. And we're not going to know everything. It's okay to have a bit of spaciousness, to allow there to be some anonymity, some curiousness, because when we think we know everything, that's often when we don't know nothing. There's a very wise
Yeah.
Buddhist saying where I believe there was a monk and they were meditating for a number of years, and their teacher said, when you feel like you've reached enlightenment, let me know. And so this one month, monk was meditating for about 2 weeks, nonstop, and is like, yeah, okay, I'm enlightened. Goes to his teacher and is like, okay, I feel enlightened. I really feel this. He's like, right, go and meditate for another 2 months now, because someone that's enlightened knows there's always more to grow into. And so it's really having that energy of curiosity, compassion, and almost this childlike wonder when it comes to ourselves. Being able to offer that to ourselves
Yeah.
itself can be so healing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to this on a Huberman podcast the other day. Oh my god. This was this is so uncanny.
Yeah.
That the human emotion that creates joy is like wonder. That's actual joy.
Yeah.
And it was something about children, like, how why children are so joyful is because they have so much wonder and so much innocence.
Yeah.
And we don't have that anymore. Like, there's no trend of saying I don't know, or what's that.
Yeah.
And this person, actually, this person who was on the Huberman podcast asked Andrew Huberman, like, when was the last time you was surprised or felt wonder? And he had to pause and think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
He's one of the most enlightened people out there who knows, like, probably what's the best way to live. And this was so interesting. And I'm like, okay, so should we all have children now so we feel like we have wonder? Like, what's the best way to be healthy and joyful and, like, live long? This is so true. um yeah, but coming back to energetic healing and somatic practices, you were talking, when you were talking about the chakras, you also said something like, sometimes you feel a blockage. So what are these healing practices, and how do these blockages manifest?
So I believe I shared this before, but essentially when I'm doing a Kundalini activation, it's I'm a channel that receives this frequency that I'm holding the space, and so my hands may move in a way where I'm being guided to go. And so a lot of people understand the energetics of Reiki, where you have a Reiki master or a Reiki healer that uses their hands to sense what the different energy points are. And like, they've had a different set of training. I'm not too familiar with it, but they're able to kind of move the energy around to kind of rebalance someone. And there's so many meditations that you can find on YouTube where you can visualize your different chakras and bring them back into balance. But for me, when I'm in an activation, it's like I sense it. Sometimes I even feel it within myself. Like, okay, I feel that there's a blockage here. Let me go and work on this space a little bit more. And then after, when I'm speaking with them, I don't like to make stories up in my own mind. I ask them, how did that feel for you? Did you sense anything during the activation? Where did you notice that if there was any tenderness or heaviness or a blockage somewhere? And they may reaffirm, like, it's here. And I may intuitively pick up a download, like, it could be to do with this. How does that land for you? And they can either resonate or not. And so sometimes we weave in a bit of coaching, especially with my one-to-one clients, because it's really important that, especially for them, that they may be working on a particular challenge and doing an activation to try and remove some of the blockages around that, and then having a path forward that they can feel a bit more empowered into, especially as they go through the integration process. They can start to understand some of the energetics when it comes to that.
What's the integration period? What do you mean by
Great
that?
question. So integration is where essentially your frequency has gone from, like, let's imagine you've got a baseline of here and then it goes up to here. Your frequency has shifted. And so what happens is that your body, your emotional body, your physical body, your subtle bodies, your energetic body needs time to catch up to holding that frequency, because that frequency isn't going anywhere. And so this is what we call the process of integration, where we're moving from our baseline of where we were back to up here, where we've received this new transmission and our vibe has changed. And so that can really look like a time period. What we say is that it's not the activation itself that's super important, it's actually the integration, because you'll find that through this almost like ripple effect, that your tastes may change, your intuition may pick up. You may find that, oh, I don't want to eat these kinds of foods anymore, or oh, this friendship group doesn't actually feel in alignment for me, or this relationship that I'm in, or this job that I'm in, and I want to do this and play here. And these are all things that are like shedding the layers of conditioning that we've had, right? And so that time period is often from the activation, so day one until 14 days. And we say, pay attention, because you will see how this manifests in your life. And even if you think it's not working, I always say the energy is always working. And if you can't see it in those 2 to 14 days, I promise you, set a timer on your phone from the day we have the activation, from like 1 or 3 months from now, And I want you to reflect on the intention that you set. And I want you to see how much your life has changed between now and then. Because for many people, their life doesn't change. If you were to record yourself from day one, you have no goals. You're not really working towards something. You're just working 9 to 5, having fun with your friends, doing what you're doing, maybe the occasional holiday, all of which is perfect and fine, by the way. But then if you were to set a reminder or a timer on your phone to come back in 3 months' time, what has actually changed within you, in your mental state, how you show up in the world, how you want to receive in the world, how you serve in the world? How have you leveled up? And not everyone wants to, and that's perfectly fine. But it's like if you're someone that is consciously driven towards growth or personal change, or just wanting to live life at its fullest, it's really important to witness some of these things in our life. Otherwise, most people find that they spend 10, 5, 1 year of their life doing the same thing day in, day out, scrolling on social media, just doing their basic stuff, and they're unhappy. And it's because they're not doing anything to actively change. Change requires effort, and that is the process of alchemy when you are doing energy healing or coaching or whatever it may be. Like I often say, it's akin to being in the gym. When you first walked into the gym, you had no idea what you were doing, or you may have picked up, the 10 kg dumbbells and were like, fuck, like this is really heavy for me. I can't do it. So you pick up the 2.5s instead. You do more reps. You become more familiar with it. You grow stronger. You see the physical impact. Then you move up a weight. You do the same thing. And it's just that constant progression and climb. And so that's what I would say to that.
So I feel like I'm in an integration period for the last many years.
Yeah. 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 That can happen.
Sort of, right? I'm always integrating
Yeah.
because I'm generally somebody who processes things very slowly, and I can be a delayed responder as well. And I'm aware of that. So sometimes I feel like, oh, I ate that and it doesn't really feel very good.
Yeah.
It's going to take me like 6 months to be like, oh, actually, it did not feel good because,
Yeah.
it affected my mood. Like, for example, I love having like fast food occasionally, but
Yeah.
lately I'm like, I don't want to do this because I was able to articulate what really goes down, because I'm like, it's for me like having fast food has a hangover period. It takes me like 24 to 48 hours to come back and be like, okay, that felt really weird. I'm lazy afterwards. I feel slouchy. My motivation go like the neural pathways.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's an extended weekend. So if I'm having it on a Sunday, I don't
Yeah.
have I don't want to have a weekend on Monday and Tuesday. I want to be productive. I want to run. I want to do something for the body, for the soul, feel good at the end. But it just took me like 6 months to a year to understand like what really goes down when I eat fast food,
Yeah.
and that's why I feel like I'm always integrating because it takes me a while.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Some people articulate their feelings really quickly, really clear.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And actually, if it helps for me to give some clarity, I mean, in the activation space, we say it's that ripple effect. So the most time that you may see this change manifesting is in those 2 weeks on an energetic level, emotional level, physical level. But it's not to say that the integration, the ripple effect won't continue past that. And it goes the same with any kind of modality, because you're constantly learning. Because as you go through these practices and make it something that you do consistently, like you do at the gym, you learn different things. You can look at a situation that happened 5 years ago and be like, oh, this finally makes sense now. You know, you give yourself grace and grace and compassion along the way, because we're not perfect. When we don't need to be perfect, and our own timing is perfect. Like that is something that I would always share. And one thing that I realized And it was only until I worked with grandmother ayahuasca, and I was working with someone to help me through the integration period, because there were so many different experiences that came from that plant medicine journey. And, if it's helpful to anyone listening that's curious, I've also written or recorded a podcast about it on my channel. And it was fascinating for me because she said, yeah, you may be integrating for the next 5 years. And I was like, what? 5 years? Like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah, it just depends on, you know, how not how soon you learn these lessons, but how they come to you. And they will come to you as they're meant to. You're not meant to learn everything all in one go. We don't have the capacity to do that as human beings. Otherwise, we'd be superhuman, and we're just human, and that's okay. And so it's like when we have compassion for that, and we have this awareness that takes us out of the mind to actually really understand, everything happens in its perfect timing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. Like I've always had this feeling, okay, this is too greasy for me. I don't know. I love it, but
Yeah.
I feel weird later. It does something to the energy. And I
Yeah.
don't mean like the spiritual energy. I mean like the physical energy,
Physical
because while
energy.
I believe it, it just
Yeah.
I'm also very scientific. I'm like, I don't know what it does. Like it just feels blah later, like in a very layman way of putting it.
Yeah.
um but
I
it's taken me years to
mm,
actually be like, okay, this is what it does, and I don't want no part of it.
yeah, I hear it.
And now I don't crave it anymore
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
something's shifted in the brain, you know?
And when we think about it, it's interesting because I've been starting to eat a lot more healthily, eating more like whole foods instead of the processed stuff. And it's fascinating because I ended up just having a piece of chocolate, like Cadbury's chocolate. I was really craving it around my period. And I thought I have some in Bali. So I had some and I was like, whoa, like the sugar in here is insane. Like I could feel my body responding. And it's because it's like our cells, our DNA knows, it senses, it's like a chemical. And it's these chemicals in our food
Yeah.
that create these different addictions. And it's only when we step
Yeah.
out and tune into our body and realize, actually, this doesn't make me feel great, that you
No,
realize that,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you don't crave it anymore.
Yeah, we discuss this. My partner and I discuss this all the time. Like
Really?
recently, we were like, we were really struggling with a few things, and I was like, do you think we are only able to stay so alive and so focused because we eat so well? He's like 200%.
Yes.
We eat fresh food every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like a domino effect because I always tell him I don't want to cook this from a bottle.
Yeah.
And he's also very particular, but because he was like, okay, I always knew that there are some foods I don't like, but having you in my life helps me basically spell that out, because I'm like, we push each other and we're like, no, let's not do it.
Yeah.
Like if we want to have a hamburger, let's make our own hamburger
Yeah.
with like actual meat. We don't want to have meat from a box because we don't know what it is. And I feel like I was reading a research the other day. Basically, there are two groups of people, and scientists basically give them different kinds of foods, and then they measure joy in them later.
Wow. Wow.
And it's actually real. Like, I was like, do not tell me this. This is
Fascinating.
insane. And it's so true. It's
Yeah.
so true. Like, you are what you eat. There was this Netflix documentary, You Are What You Eat.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand it unless I'm like, you are literally what you eat. What you put in your body, it shows what you put in your body.
Yeah.
It's literally that.
And each
Yeah.
thing has a vibration, a vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
And
So the
when
feeling after having vegetables, the grounding I feel after having vegetables
Yeah.
versus after having too much meat,
Yes.
totally different. Totally different.
Yeah.
And I always like to start my week with like lighter foods. And then on Thursday and Friday, I'm like, okay, let's treat ourselves. Let's do something. But like starting with something lighter,
Yeah.
it just, I'm in better energy.
Yeah.
And this really works. Like, if somebody doesn't believe it, they'd be like, these two have lost their mind. It doesn't work like that. You can be whatever. But if you believe in something, it just changes the way you look at it.
Totally.
And I believe in that. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you there. And it's like, well, you've got the physical proof of how you feel. If you feel like
Yeah.
something is or isn't working for you, trust that. And if you
Yeah.
find out what the source of it is, that's even more incredible, because then it means you get to choose. And having that choice, having that
Yeah.
agency, that sovereignty, you don't have to be like everyone else around you. You get to be unique in your own way. Do
Yeah.
what serves you best. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we come to the close, I remember when we were discussing an agenda for the episode,
Yeah.
I put down this thing like, what are different grounding tips that work for different people?
Mm.
And it's really crazy because since I wrote that down, I was thinking, what are some grounding things that I do, but maybe I don't really know them that I do them.
Yeah.
Of course, there's some things I know that I do.
Yeah.
But then exactly after sending you that email, I started thinking, and I was able to come to the conclusion between then and now, is that for me, like, I need to cook every day or every second day.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I was like, why is that? Like, why do I need to do that? And then I remember reading in a book that people, when they use their hands to do something, it switches it switches on a part in your brain, which actually makes you happy.
Wow.
Like, working with your hands actually makes you happy, which is why, like, when you do something physically, or like some people do gardening, for example, but working with your hands actually makes you happy. And for me, that's like real grounding. If I don't do that, I miss it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so happy when I'm able to cook something or do something with my hands, and then it's there in front of me, and then I get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But obviously that's just me. But like, you work in this space.
Yeah.
What are some grounding practices people can have?
Oh, I just love.
We don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I love the fact that you shared that experience of cooking and being in using your hands. And what I was really hearing through that is that you were present. And that's what grounding is. It's being able to be present within ourselves. And so what can that look like? It can look like breath work. It can look like taking a walk outside and just using your five senses. What can you see? What can you smell? How does your feet feel like on the earth? You can do physical grounding, known as earthing, where you literally put your bare feet on the earth and you're just there, just breathing, feeling the sensation in your feet, and just drawing the mind out of your head and into the body and into something, a space that's supporting you. Can look like having a cup of tea and journaling. It can look like so many different aspects, so many, but anything that essentially allows you to stabilize within your own body can be a grounding practice. That can be moving your body. It can be dancing, putting on your favorite song and dancing and just feeling as you're moving your body or shaking your hips, or whatever it is that's allowing you to express this energy. It can be very grounding at the same time, as long as you're consciously choosing to do it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
You know, that's really true, actually, because I think for me, cooking does that.
Yeah.
Or being outside, or like taking in the sun or something. But that I can't choose that because I live in Germany.
Yeah.
And the sun's not always there. But if it were up to me, it would always be there.
Yeah.
But like, I remember also discussing with you earlier that, so what I really want women to hear on the podcast is, and understand, is that I just wish to see a world where more women can like freely enjoy sexual relationships, to be completely honest. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this episode, because I feel like this whole conversation is about being able to feel more and understand more, right? And I also feel like building that relationship with yourself and with your body helps you be more liberated, or be more present, or experience it more fully, however we want to put it. And I do feel like inherently a lot of us carry these blockages, and this is why we don't have fulfilling sexual relationships. And it's really easy to tell, oh, that guy was not so great in bed, but like, do you feel it fully? And I feel like that's the question I've learned to ask. And this kind of brings me where I feel like everything can converge. And I'd really like to know your thoughts on it, because we live in a dating culture which basically prioritizes casual sex. So you're supposed to sleep with someone you don't even know. And I support that fully if somebody wants to do it. But if you've done that, and then you've looked within, and then you've done the work, and then you've spoken to yourself, and then you've listened to your thoughts, you're going to come to a conclusion. Most likely, everybody's different. Some people are very high on social sexuality. They're like, we're totally fine with it. But I doubt it that they're going to continue feeling that way, because if you do that, if you do all that work, you're going to feel like, I want more than just sleeping around. Sexual liberation for me is not just being able to have those experiences. The number of those, that number is not important, that feeling is important. And as more and more women are doing their work, I feel like we are starting to recognize that we live in a sex culture that was not built to empower us. It was built to empower capitalism, and it was built to empower a male-dominated patriarchal society. Like we definitely were told that, oh, it's such a free culture, but that free culture did not align with our innate desires. What are your thoughts on that? Like, have you felt something change? Do you think we are? Do you think we need a counter sex culture? Do you think we need a new sex ethic? Do you think something more suited, something more rooted with feminine energy is on the way? What do you think about it? Do you have any thoughts on it at all, by the way?
Mm, yeah, it's a really good question. I feel that there's so much that could be shared in this. Um, and I'm also conscious of time. But yeah, I feel like so much can be shared on this. And essentially, each woman is going to be unique and have her own unique needs. But something that you shared that I feel is really important is the fact that we are energetic beings. And when you start to do the work, you start to connect with yourself, learning what sensual touch feels like with you. What's your own touch like? How do you feel when you massage your breasts or work with your yoni and pleasure yourself? What comes from that? Do you even know what your pleasure points are? So that is one aspect. Also, learning this sensual movement, like how do you feel winding your waist, moving your hips, not as a performance, but as a genuine, deep reverence to your feminine energy, to your sexual energy that you get for yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to be promiscuous, but it means that you're so in tune with your sexual energy that you know that your womb is a temple and not everyone is welcome in your temple, is the way that I see it. And I validate people where they want to have casual sex because I'm like, listen, if you've been really suppressed and this is what you need and you need this element of perceived freedom, go for it. Just be safe, know who you're inviting into your space, have respect for them because it's an energetic exchange. And one of the things that I really remind my clients or help my clients with is sexual clearings, because we have wombs as women, they are portals. They hold energy. They give life, not necessarily just to creative projects and things, but they physically give life to babies. And so it's like, how can you not think that your womb doesn't hold energy? And so when you're having sex very casually with multiple partners, men will be carrying different energies too. And if you're not doing the work to consciously clear them, you can hold that energy and it can make you feel very debilitated. And you may not understand why. And so if someone's not used to energy work or understanding how their own body is because they're numbing themselves, for example, through casual sex and using it with the reframe that I'm being empowered, but in an unconscious way, then it may be doing more harm than good. If, on the other hand, you are incredibly conscious and you're like, yep, I've tuned in with myself. This is what I want. This is how I feel, and I'm doing it. Fine. And
Mm,
tune in again and see, how do you feel? Was this person the right person for you? Did they meet your needs? Where were you playing small? There are these questions that you can ask yourself to invite curiosity. And it's about curiosity and not judgment. And I think for so many years, centuries, women have been judged for wanting to be
beings,
sexual. We
yeah.
are such sexual beings. Yeah. We come from divinity. How can we not? We have everything within
Yeah.
us, just as men do. And so it's like, explore what that looks like for you. And if I was to close this, I would say, just circling back to that aspect of how I had to learn to reframe what femininity meant to me. It's the different archetypes of what it means to be a woman. Yeah, she's the maiden, the innocent one, the flirty one, the sensual one. She's also, the queen energy, the mother energy that's nourishing and nurturing. But she's also the
Mm-hmm.
Kali, like the divine warrior, fierce goddess that doesn't stand for ego, that is all about truth and essence and standing up for what she believes in. All of these things exist within us. The wild woman exists within us. And so as we learn to kind of move from the typical patriarchal view of a woman just being a maiden and innocent and then shifting straight into the mother and having children and a husband, it's like, whoa, can we honor like all of the different stages and aspects that a woman goes through? How can we honor those parts of ourselves? So even the crone, when we as women may go into menopause, it's like it shifts us and we go into a completely different season, but that still has wisdom, that still has femininity. And so it's, yeah, about honoring all parts of ourselves. And I think when we can become honest with ourselves, that's where the real conversation will begin. But where there is fear, judgment, shame, and no real work done to address these shadows that exist within ourselves, then that's where more harm is done than good.
Yeah. Yeah. I just a follow-up question, because you work with a lot of women and you probably meet a lot more women going through it than I do. Is casual sex empowering for most of them? How do they feel about it? Do you hear any thoughts on it?
It's a real mix. So I don't want to give a blanket statement like yes or no. It's because each woman is different and she's on a different path of her journey. She's at a different stage of her journey. And so for some of them, yeah, they do find it empowering. But as long as they understand how they feel before, during, and after, and if there is something within that that makes them feel uncomfortable, then we work together to address it. Equally, for others, it's like they understand that they've got enough of a connection to their womb space that they see it as it being an initiation to wider consciousness. They choose to have conscious sex, and using it like tantra. Like tantra is not just about sex, by the way, but it's about a way of being. It's about discipline. It's about control in a way that creates closeness and intimacy in a very different way through the energies that we have sexually. And so it varies. I think in general for women, sex is empowering because we are sexual by nature. And so it's about, what does that look like in practice for you? Does it look like having that relationship with yourself and your own body and learning about your pleasure points and pleasuring yourself? Does it look like being with a partner that honors you for the woman that you are, where you get to explore and try new things? Does it mean being abstinent until you get married? Like, it can be so many things, all of which connects back to the relationship that you have with yourself. And so it's about making those informed, conscious choices that work well for you. But I would say where sex is done unconsciously, then no, it's not empowering. It gives the illusion of empowerment, but ultimately, I feel from different conversations and just researching that it may mean that you're running away from something more. And so I would invite anyone that may see it to be as empowering to question that. Is it truly empowering? Do you feel like a full body yes after? Do you feel good about yourself? Or is there something
Yeah,
more there?
that's a very good
Yeah.
point. How do you feel after? It's usually a good indicator of
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And without judgment, just having like this compassion, like it's okay. You're learning. This is good information for us. You know, there's no right or wrong here. We're just learning about what works best for us now. And that can change over time. So if someone is learning to explore more sexually, I'm like, yeah, go for it. Be safe. Know who you're with, and set the tone for being with someone that will respect you, regardless of if it's casual or not. And yeah, over time, depending on one's personal growth journey, spiritual journey, how they're feeling in that current state of their life, may incur a completely different path, or you may choose to move down a different avenue. The essence of this part of the conversation, I think, is to welcome it all and allow yourself to explore. It's okay. There is no right and wrong. If you do something and it makes you feel like you're out of alignment with your values or your integrity from within, not from conditioning, which is the difference, then take that as the lesson and move forward with it, with love, with self-forgiveness, if that's what you need as well. Like, all of that is part of the experience.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Thank you for
that's what I
being
would
here.
share.